Hello, Margie. Welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here. Your story is one of incredible resilience, and I cannot wait to hold the space for ourselves as well as our viewers to hear about your story, to find a spark of hope in them, to find the courage to want to heal. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
For those of us that are not familiar with who you are, can you give a little introduction of your background, your story?
Well, I wrote a book. My name is Margie Allman. I wrote a book about my life, basically. In the book, I use triathlon as my vice for helping me build strength and heal the past. The past involves a lot of darkness. Should I start with my just telling my story?
I would actually love your story from the childhood because I could resonate so much with it. And I think a lot of people think that, it's what we experience and all that. But there's a part of us that comes inbuilt that maybe exaggerates some of our experiences. And I think you would be in a very good position to share that and how, as an adult later on, how we then face these challenges that we have since young and how we walk out of it. I think that'd be fantastic.
Okay, I came out of the womb fearful, anxious, I should say terrified, not fearful, and anxious, unable to regulate my emotions. I was the child that, I was born in the 60s, and back then, therapy wasn't such a thing for kids. It was suck it up, buttercup, and get with the program. And why can't you just do what everybody else does and be on your way? Um, it was almost like I was fighting my inner self, and it came out like I was fighting the world. I couldn't follow directions. My mom would tell me not to run in the street. I ran in the street. I couldn't calm myself. I was always crying at school, which turned into never wanting to go to school. I was terribly shy, awkwardly shy, afraid of being seen, which is what we call it now. I walked around like this, and my mom tried. She, didn't. She asked doctors what she could do and to help me, and nobody knew. And I ended up going down the negative path. I got into drugs and skipping school and um, self-destructive behavior because the other way I couldn't see. It was too uncomfortable for me, and that's the only way I can explain it is I was so uncomfortable in my own skin that I was trying to not feel what it felt like to be myself. So I got in a lot of trouble, and my parents, my dad had a military background, and it was his decision to put me in a place called Straight Incorporated, which was abusive attack therapy on kids. We were all kids. When you're in that position, you're underage, you can fight for so long, but eventually you have to go along with it. And so they beat you down, and then the idea, I guess, is to build you back up. But they didn't really build us back up in a way that we could function in the real world. It was do not talk, I couldn't talk. I couldn't When I got out of straight, I had no social skills. If I had none before, I certainly had none then. And my self-esteem was had I didn't have any self-esteem to begin with, and when I got out of there at 18, I had even less. So I fumbled a lot. I tried to, I went to school, I went to jobs, I got work. And by the time I got out of straight, I had so much rage that I couldn't even express for having been treated the way they treated us. They sat on me, they put me in isolation. It's hard to get back out in the world as an 18-year-old and have any sense of being capable. So I found exercise when I was in straight, and I started when I was in solitude, like doing running in place, doing sit-ups, jumping jacks, just anything to pass the time. I didn't have a clock. I was fed peanut butter, bread, and water, and so that's when I started exercising kind of as a way to just pass time because I didn't know what else to do with myself. And that's a good thing. I mean, exercise can be abused, it can be, used to hide, to not deal with other problems in life. But for me, it gave me a sense of strength that I had stamina and I had grit. I could wear myself out and keep going. And after that, I got into bodybuilding, which gave me another sense of confidence. I didn't feel confident. It gave me an interesting sense of strength, just in my own power. I was still afraid to be seen, and I was still extremely shy and lacked self-confidence, but it kinda gave me juice, just something to kinda, like, bide the time and keep walking a path, and I tripped up quite a bit. I went that path, I did bodybuilding, and that was good, and then I fell apart again, and that's when I got into the bar scene and worse drugs and eventually selling myself and making a living off my body because I could, and that gave me a twisted sense of power too. Like if I wasn't capable intellectually and personality wise and socially, well, maybe I was supposed to do this because that's what attractive women do a lot of times is that's the one power we have. And I could, that just wore me down harder. And my sister, I have to say, I have a very loving family. And even though my parents chose that place for me and I did not succeed, they never let me go. And they always sent me messages, we love you. They never cut me off and said, you're not my kid. So, and my sister, they were my lifeline for many, many years. And then I also got epilepsy. I got a high fever. I got really sick. I got epilepsy, these violent seizures. I had to go on medication that affected my brain too. So, like, I'd gone to school and I had realized I was kind of smart. And then I slid back when I got seizures and I had to go on medication that kind of dumbed me down. And I moved to Los Angeles. My dad had gotten transferred out there and asked me if I wanted to come live with him. And I did. And that's where I met my guy. We were together for 22 years and maybe not the best relationship, but I feel like he kind of kept me alive too, even though we had some destructive behaviors. But I felt like I belonged with him. But at the same time, it was while I was with him that I got into a cocaine addiction and I got toxic shock syndrome. Women get it from a tampon, and also my lungs collapsed and my blood pressure was 50 over 30. And that was definitely a turning point. So after that, I decided I did, in fact, want to live. Like, I was never suicidal, but the way I lived was so hard. I am surprised I didn't die. And after that, I got a job in a Pilates studio and I eventually became a Pilates instructor, which did wonders for my self esteem. It was the first time in my life I believed I had something to offer. And I met some amazing people who told me I had something to offer, and I believed them. It started to hit home. I met a great group of women through Pilates. As my strength grew, I went back to school and decided I needed a break from my relationship. And that's when I got into triathlons because I was afraid for my life. I was in Los Angeles. I knew what was out there if I went back to bars, if I was just afraid. I was like, I don't know how to deal. So that's when I got into triathlons because I needed something that would take up enough of my time and that I believed I could do. So I had always been a runner. And I knew how to swim since I was a little girl. I grew up by the water and it was my happy place. So swimming, biking, and running became my church, if you will. The more I did it, the more confident I felt, and it was life changing for me. But I still didn't know how to face those qualities that I feel like I was born with, the low self esteem, the incredible shyness, the just fear of being seen, fear of being disliked, fear of everything, not fitting in the world. I did triathlon through my 40s, and then my boyfriend, we had gotten back together, and I was going to do a very big race, an Ironman, and he had an accident that I didn't think was a big deal, and he asked me not to go, and I was like, "You're fine. I just have to do this." And he died while I was gone. Suddenly, unexpectedly, it was a freak accident. And so I moved back across the country to be with my family because those were the people I thought it would comfort, ease my grief, which it didn't. Once I got back with my family, my parents were either 80 or almost 80, and I knew I needed to be there for them. So I was lost in dealing with my own grief, but by showing up for my parents, that took me to another level of how I saw myself. It was like I was building my resume of good stuff, um, to try to crush down all the bad stuff. I had so much shame and remorse and guilt, um, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to reframe straight. I'm starting to understand what complex PTSD means now. Apparently, it means you have trauma, you react to the trauma, and then you have trauma over your reaction to the trauma. And that's what I had. I had like a book of stuff. Like, how do I deal with
Trauma.
all this? And then a friend introduced me to a self help online program that really helped me grow in ways that I still don't even know. Like, it teaches you to calm your nervous system so that everything's not always a panic, and it's not always, "How do I deal? How do I deal?" It's more of a, "Okay, I can deal." And I'm not saying I have got it down because I don't, but where I am today, so now I'm 60. Actually, I just turned 61, and somehow I am in the best place in my life. I can't believe I made it, and I'm not still a mess, you know? I'm just so grateful, and that's where my book ends is I come down to the tropics, I take up scuba diving, which is my happy place from my childhood, and it's pretty unbelievable. And so that's my story.
Really amazing journey that you had there. I could resonate with some parts of it because all of us have some stories that we go through. We have different storylines, but the emotions that we feel inside that were troubling us, that were stopping us from believing in ourselves, is actually very stuck in there. I wanted to start from your childhood. I wanted to understand, as a child with very high anxiety, how does your environment look like for you? Do you feel safe? And when you don't, the shyness that portray out, was it anger?
My shyness, I think it was fear. I was afraid of the world. I'm still pretty shy, and I don't really understand. I just see it as part of my personality because I don't know what you're supposed to do with how you change being shy. What did you ask me about
I
the
asked
anxiety?
how do you feel as a kid? Do you constantly feel worried? Were you scared? And then
I
how do
was
other
scared.
people, how do they look at you? Do they look at you as shy?
Um, uh, as shy and like there was something wrong with me. I was easily bullied by other. It was like I was a good target, like, oh,
Yes.
there she is, the shy one. And yeah, and I didn't handle that well. It just made me want to not go to school.
Were you angry when they attack you?
That's interesting. I think I was hurt. I didn't get angry, I got hurt, and I didn't understand why the other kids were so mean.
So do you quietly walk away?
When I was a kid back then, well, I was like this. I would just kind of try to hide without hiding and not look at them. And, I still tried to play with kids after school. And I mean, even my next door neighbor was a bully. It was just, fortunately, as kids, we do have a sense of play. And,
Yes.
I was an outdoorsy kid, so I could always find pleasure and play and fun. And, we had a boat. We spent time out on the water and learned to water ski and snorkel. So I had good stuff in there. It was just then you start to get a little older and and it's not so easy to find fun and play. Um I had horses, but or I rode horses, but it gets lonely. It got really lonely, and that's part of why I think I turned to getting high, because it started to feel really bad when they were mean to me, and I just wanted to be something different, different than who I was.
How did your parents approach you when you were shy? Were they encouraging you to come out of your shell, or were they just, okay, you're the shy one? How was their approach to working with you? I'm trying to understand that because this is a part that I still struggle with for myself, as well as when I work with my child, because I'm also very, very shy. But I was lucky in the sense that I didn't have people bullying me that much. And now I have my own children, and one of them also experienced high anxiety as well. When he was younger, he was also very prone to bullies targeting him. And I always said, walk away. And it didn't quite work. And somehow it triggered some anger in him, and he become like an angry person to other people. But I know that deep inside there was a lot of loneliness. So it wasn't always like this person is angry, this person is shy. There's a lot of experience that kind of validate to them that yes, like if you're shy and people bully you, it's natural that you become more shy. That's how I see it.
Yes, I feel like, so my friend who's a therapist, she said to me the other day when I was asking her why someone hurt me, she said, "Hurt people hurt people." And I was like, "But I don't really do that." And she said that she felt like I turned mine inward. And that is exactly what happened. My mom would just say, "It's okay, honey, I'm shy too." And my dad would just kind of like, tighten his jaw and wish that I would could go out there and, do it. But I think mine turned into this inward, I'm just not good enough, and kind of self that destructive tendency came in. The more they didn't like me, the more I didn't like myself. So, and I don't know, I often wonder if it's possible for children to be born with low self-esteem. I feel like I was born with low self-esteem, and so it wasn't easy for me to fight back. It was just confirming the things I already believed about myself.
For my son, I'm definitely one of the reasons. I had a very traumatic pregnancy where I was bullied at work, and then I was ostracized at work when I was pregnant, and then the birth experience was very traumatic. So I think him being so close in me must have taken a lot of those energy. But there is
Yeah.
also a personality that make it worse because he's dealing with me, asking him to walk away when he just wanted to stand up for himself. So I think there was a combination of things. And what you said there was something that, we all experience, babies born in the 60s all the way to 80s, emotionally unavailable parents because they're so working so hard for the family that emotions is not in their understanding. So
Right.
deal with it, suck it up, or push you out, that kind of experience. So it's really challenging, when we talk about this, even when in at this point when I'm trying to be available for my son, I do find that as a parent, sometimes in the best of intent, I did not make the best decision for him to allow him to get out of it. I don't think I did. So I understand that the environment probably have also trapped you a little bit, like I have for my son. I think I've trapped him a bit because when he finally rebelled, he was so angry and he said, "Your method don't work," and he was raging, and it was very hard for me to handle it. But at the same time, came to this realization that even with the best intent as a parent, no, it's not the best for our child sometimes.
Well, of course. I mean, you're just doing your best. You can't have all the answers. I can't imagine. I don't have children, so I can't imagine how frustrating it must feel when you can't get it right.
Do
Go
you
ahead.
think that it then impacted your teenage life, making your choices in friends and all that when you were growing up, which eventually led you to straight ink?
My parents couldn't control. My mom didn't want me to die. I wouldn't go to school. I was running away. Um, and and I did a lot of drugs, honestly. And I feel bad. Well, I don't want to say I feel bad admitting this because I wrote my story and I want to share it to help others know they can overcome these things. You know, There were things that I would have liked to have done, like my mom put me in the band and had me play the instrument that she wanted that she played. I wanted to play the drums. Sometimes little things like that, I'm like, if I had been able to play the drums and bang and like get out some of these feelings and be given to that masculine energy, then maybe I would have found something different and not just drugs. um, I would have found a way to vent maybe. I do think I just internalized everything. I'm also very sensitive. So it was difficult for me to put things in perspective. These kids don't matter. Your peers, when you're a teenager, I mean, it really doesn't matter, but to a teenager, it's everything. It's our friends and school and extracurricular activities, and I couldn't find satisfaction in any of it. So
Instrument were you playing?
the clarinet and the bassoon, and I wasn't good at either of them, and I had braces when I started. I don't know why I had
Oh
to,
no, that's
yeah, I don't
difficult
know why
too.
I had to do that, but that's what they told me to do, and the band director didn't like me. He yelled at me all the time, and so,
Because you
that
weren't
just
playing well. He's frustrated.
I, yes. Oh, he had a temper problem, yeah, but
I remember because my son is in violin and he was so good at it, and his academic results were excellent. So when I had my girl, I thought I put her into violin, and then for 3 months she suffered and I suffered more. Eventually, I was like, okay, that's it. I don't need you to excel. I just want my sanity and my relationship with you. I took her out of violin and she chose piano. And now I could see a different personality. So you're absolutely right. If you would be given the drum, I think it would be a very different outcome.
well, I'm glad you did that for her.
When you were in the straight, when your parents eventually sent you to straightenings out, I understand that they were very strict and all that, but I'm just wondering, there are many kids in there in the same boat as you. Were you able to find a friend that would at least be there for you?
We weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to talk to each other because druggy kids can only lead to bad ideas. That was the idea. So, like, it's in 5 phases. So, on phase 1, they carry you by the back of your pants, and you can never speak unless you're spoken to or you raise your hand. You can't read, you can't watch TV, and you certainly cannot talk. So, no, I never had any friends in there. And you're not allowed to say there was a brainwashing aspect to it. Like, you could never say, I hate this place, or I hate what you're doing to me, or I like that was like, ugh, well, you deserve it, and let's get to the real root of your problems. So lots of things never got dealt with for me because I couldn't express myself.
Balance.
We were allowed to make amends, like we could earn meetings with our parents to make amends, and I truly wanted. I loved my parents, and I I was sorry for all the ways I hurt them or made them scared and worried, and but you can only beat someone down so far without ever letting them say, "This is too much," or question it, or it was pretty much it was follow the rules, do the program, progress, or you'll be punished.
Wow, I I don't have words for that. It sounds really, really harsh.
It was really harsh. Those programs aren't allowed to exist. Some of them still exist today, but like this place was shut down and then it would reopen under a different name in a different state. For one thing, well, I mean, kids that behave like me, I understand parents want them to be in a safe place, but even back then in the state of Florida, which is where it was against the law to hold children against their will. I mean, much less to silence them, and it's not good. There's a survivors group on Facebook, and some people are still really broken, like not able to heal even, in any significant degree that lets them live a life that feels like they've been freed of straight, like I I know it still affects me, but I do feel like I've been freed from it because of the work I was able to find to help myself. But that doesn't always happen. And and it's very confusing to have, you get to believe they're right, that you are living a worthless life and that you have been nothing but a piece of crap to your family, and it's hard to get rid of that bad kid, that cloud. I used to say I felt like a remember the character in Peanuts, Pigpen, and he walks around in a cloud of dirt? Like, I used to feel like I was walking around in a cloud of, "I'm a bad kid," even into my adult life.
I
So,
can
it was hard,
imagine that.
and finding Pilates, like, my resume of good, these things helped, but I had to go inside to figure out how to unlabel myself. As long as there's another message in there that they're getting, I mean, because we all go through ups and downs and feeling bad about ourselves or not good enough, but there's got to be another voice in there saying different words, like, yes, I can. I know I can, even though I get down sometimes. Let me keep doing this, the good stuff. And I just didn't have that for a long time.
Must be really challenging. I'm actually lost for words because I saw interviews of you online when I understand a little bit, but I didn't hear the details like now when you were sharing it because I imagine it's actually really, really harsh. We have a child that we know when the parents first came to Australia, they couldn't get the visa for the child to study in the school. So for 1 year, the child was kept at home. He was just at home with the parents, and we did stay in a neighborhood where there's nice parks, playgrounds, and the kids play together. But he was very angry all the time. He was so angry that if you were to so accidentally step on him, he will want to rage and hit you and beat you up because there was so much pent up energy in him. And then the next year, he started schooling, and I saw him and I thought, oh, he has changed so much. So putting a child in extended period of time in a confined area with such a strict regime like you have shared, I think it's very detrimenting. It does not do any good.
No, it does not. I agree.
I used to be so scared that I actually told my son to stay away from him. But then now I felt like I'm putting my gut down as a mom because I see that he's no longer violent. He is actually softened so much. So I know that the freedom is what you really crave. And I guess in a way you then turn on to doing what you can in the institution, which is exercise.
Right. Yeah.
That was
I mean,
a little piece of control that you still have.
yes, exactly. Yeah. That was the only thing I was allowed to do that I wouldn't get in trouble for. And, it always makes me feel better to move. So I discovered that. But yeah, I mean, we're human beings. So to put any human being in a box or alone with limited input, the only input being these voices telling you these certain messages, I mean, it's going to inhibit the development of a human being.
Yes. Even now, with my teenager at home, if I say something that was opposing and he couldn't voice his opinion, or he felt that his opinion was shut down, oh wow, the anger I got. Wow. So I can imagine the amount of suppression that you have to endure to stay in that place. And at the same time, I can also see how remarkable you are. And I see a glimpse of so much hope for humanity because you know, many times our environment keep going on, and we really have to rely on ourselves to find that glimpse of hope to search for the better in the darkness. And for
Yes.
you, you found that it was exercise and you went on with it, and therefore, if I may, you're still very functional emotionally, physically when you leave the establishment, which I don't think many can say that.
Yeah, I'm grateful I did find exercise because I know that a lot of those kids did not make it
What does not make it mean? They go back to drugs?
to die. No. A
Oh,
lot of them,
really?
yeah, some of them, killed themselves. Some went back to drugs. Some were homeless. I'm sure there are some. My therapist friend also reminds me of how trauma affects people differently. Like Vietnam vets, some of them came out of that war just totally destroyed, and others came out despite what they did and saw and seemed to be able to function in society. So I know that we're all different too. And like I said earlier, I'm super sensitive. So I took those words to heart that they were telling me. I like the one thing I always wanted was to have a healthier ego to where when somebody was speaking to me that badly, a part of me would know they were wrong. That no, I'm not that bad that you're saying.
Hard.
But there was no part of me that knew that. It was all
Yes.
just like crushing for me. And I'm surprised in a way that I lived.
It's really hard. For me, my journey is nothing like yours. It was a bed of roses. Compared to yours, it was a nothing. I have to say that. But I had my fair chance of complex childhood trauma where I have narcissistic sibling attacking me and all that. But I have to tell you, to find that bit of putting the blame on other people when the circumstances have taught you to be people pleasing or just, be safe, it is really challenging to find the fault in other people. I find it difficult too. A lot of times when I leave people, I have to say that it took me many, many times because I would then, oh yeah, maybe it's my fault, or maybe it's me. There's a lot of script that, because of our environment, that we have learned to take on, that make it so challenging to put a fault on other people, don't you think?
Yes, it very challenging. I can't even see the difference sometimes. I just have to walk away and go and calm myself down. One thing I've learned is to calm myself down. It's been huge because I can just get all flustered and then it turns into this head game of I'm sure it was me, because in the past all these things were me. Yeah, to get rid of those messages and to just try to see situations just for what they are, which is hard.
A lot of people think that healing is like, oh, you're healed, you're done. But it's not true. Sometimes when we are confronted with things of the past, even if it's come as a memory, you just remember it, or if somebody says something or you see something triggering, it is still disturbing. It still affects us, and it takes some courage and some determination to calm ourselves down. So it's not like it's done. It's more like a exercise. You have to build the muscles for it, and then you have to hold your ground to it before it get a bit of a proportion.
Absolutely. I still sometimes can remember things in the past and be overcome with shame or remorse. Like, ugh, I can't believe I did that. And I still have to forgive myself. I don't know if forgive is the right word because the past is the past and I just have to accept it. But
Yeah,
maybe, maybe better description is be compassionate with myself. I have learned to be compassionate with myself, to give myself a break. I still judge myself for being shy. I'm not great at conversation all the time. Um, and it doesn't always bother me, but then I'll have these situations where I feel like that shy little kid again. And I just have to say, it's okay if you want to talk to someone. It's okay to talk to them. And if you don't, that's okay too. It's not a good, bad thing. It just is, you know?
agree with you. I think that the best thing that we can do is to be compassionate with ourselves. And I I would take on the word forgive, because when things happen and we don't understand, especially as a kid, when no one tells us that it's not our fault, sometimes if we are, depending on the personality, we are personality where you blame a lot on others, and there's personality where you blame yourself a lot, and we take on so much. For me, when I started healing, the number one thing that I do learn is forgive myself. I forgive myself for all the shame, the harshness. Like, mine wasn't even that bad. I was just infertile as a woman, and I felt so much shame. And because, people are popping babies, and elderly are asking, oh, when are you, having a child? And even that was very overwhelming for me. But yes, it all started with a lot of forgiveness, the kind of care that I felt that I haven't given myself, and the love that I haven't given myself. So these days, I checked in a lot instead of going to what the society labels as shy, too loud, angry, or whatever, lazy, procrastinating, whatever it says. I kind of decided that I'm going to turn inward and said, how does it feel? Do I feel comfortable? If I'm not comfortable, I'm just not comfortable, regardless of what your label is for me. That was what I'm still learning. It takes a lot of courage. I'm still learning. And I'm not sure, but it is not easy. It is challenging because sometimes when we want to move forward, the weight of the past is like dragging us down, and we have to keep having that determination to want to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you're right about forgiveness, self-forgiveness. It's easy for me to say to myself, "No, you don't deserve to be forgiven." And here I am talking about being compassionate with myself. I guess those two go hand in hand. especially when we're talking about our relationship with ourselves. We have to
Mm.
forgive ourselves and be compassionate and understanding. You know, and I have found too, one thing I like that has come out of this in myself is I have grown, as I've grown more gentle with myself, I've grown much more gentle with other people. And I really like that now about me, you know? I'm less judgmental and can, give people their space to be who they are, who they need to be. It's same as what I got to do for myself.
Agree with you because I'm so much less of a controlling mother now. Yes,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
probably
Because when you feel so much judgment, so harsh on yourself, I find that we see the world differently. Now that we are more gentle with ourselves, we see the world differently. It's more relaxing, you're more aligned. And do you drop friends as well on the way, like because you have changed and become more gentle and more aligned with your soul? Do you find that the people around your friends start to change as well?
absolutely. Yes, in the past few years, it has very much changed. And people that are no longer in my life, I still love them. It's just the path I was going on to move myself forward, I ended up leaving them behind. It wasn't a bad it, I wasn't kicking them out of my life. I was just kind of having to keep moving forward. So,
Yes. It's
yeah,
like when we meet them again, because we are moving forward and they are still in that position, I can't resonate in the conversation. There's no connection.
right. Yeah, I agree. And we all have our own journey. I mean, a couple of the people that aren't in my life anymore, I thought would be my friends for life, but
Yeah.
this this is the path. It revealed itself and
For for the longest time, I actually felt bad, but I've learned to accept that me sticking around is hurting myself more than just accepting that, the journey has ended for this relationship and to keep moving forward. But it is challenging when things first happened that way. I felt like I'm a bad person to drop my friends. I did feel that way for quite a while.
um I didn't. I think
It's good.
I I was losing my parents in the midst of this of my journey, and I almost felt like, or I totally felt like I'm doing the best I can. I know I'm growing and this is a good path for me, and if we can't stay in together, I got to go, you know?
Yeah.
I just had to. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're wiser there. That's really good. How you feel when you were doing all the sports and all the triathlon, the Ironman. How was it like for you?
It was amazing. I secretly, along with wanting to be a drummer, I had always wanted to be an athlete, but I'm not fast. I'm not, there's a lot of things I lack in athleticism. It was the fact that it's the grit of it, when your body is like, I'm dying, and your mind says, too bad, you're going to keep going. There's an amazing strength in that. And so I felt like it, you know, kind of bled into other areas of my life. While I was doing it, like I met a guy who wanted to trade Pilates sessions to train me in swimming. And so he coached me in swimming, and swimming is the most, that'll test your fitness, like, because it's the breath and the working your entire body. And I had never worked so hard in my life, and it felt so good. It was so fun. And I was like, this is me doing all this stuff. And when I'd cross the finish line, I mean, it didn't matter if I how slow, how long it took me. I did it. I swam, I biked, I ran, I did it in a time where I wasn't totally shut out of the race, and it was awesome. It brought me great joy, even though I like to say I wasn't good at it because I was never very fast or anything, and it didn't matter. I just liked being out there. There's something about being out there, it's wide open and you just keep going and going. It's great.
How do you feel when you were in it, when you were doing it? How does the feeling feel? Do you remember the Margie who was shy?
I wasn't shy when I was doing it. I was a badass. Like for one time in my life, I felt like, huh, I got this. I'm real. I felt solidly strong and tough when I was out there. My mind couldn't play all those games, like, oh, you're a loser, you're a bad kid, it didn't matter because I was finishing that race. And that's what mattered at that moment.
You light up when you talk about it.
Yeah, it was great. I know that fitness and athletics is not for everybody, which is another reason I like to say I wasn't fast and I was never the first finisher, but it was no less significant for me. I think in the trying too was good for my good resume because just the fact that because I was scared. Let me back up a minute because what I have failed to say is before every race, I had so much anxiety, I would almost be in tears. Like I'd call my dad, and he'd be like, well, this is, what all athletes feel at the beginning of the performance or game. And I'd be like, oh, but they keep doing it. So, I mean, it's kind of funny to me to look back at how worked up I could get over it. It was just a triathlon, but still. And I think overcoming that anxiety was valuable, you know?
This is really amazing. I wanted to share that how I felt that you were so in your zone, in your inner zone when you were doing that. And I could totally resonate with that. A lot of people think that we need to do this thing that, oh, this influencer or this person was sharing, like now what Margie's sharing, we're thinking that, oh, we need to do a triathlon, we need to go and do this. We can try it, but it may not be our thing. And that's okay. Because I used to be quite athletic. And when I first experienced healing was when I was in depression. I had experienced postnatal depression, obviously, after the history of bullying and ostracizing and the traumatic birth experience that I had, I slipped into depression. When I first experienced healing, I also turned to running. And when I run, I also don't remember that I had depression. All I felt was the endorphins, the happiness, and you keep running, and the view was like fantastic. And when you're finished, it felt like all the heaviness that I feel suddenly just left me and you felt so much lighter. And for the moments when you finished, at that exact moment, it felt like ah, everything is good.
Yes.
That was that was really wonderful. But many years down the road, 9 years, I gave birth to my girl, and the labor was very long. It was an hour, and I was very damaged.
the feeling of accomplishment when it's done, satisfied. It didn't be perfect, but it's what I'm following my heart to do. And at that moment I felt that peace, like so at peace with myself, so in my zone. And I think I realized that it's not about the run, it's not about the sewing, it's not about the sketching. It's any moment when we really follow our heart, we are being very aligned to ourselves, and we feel at home. Like it's like a homecoming feeling to ourselves.
You're right. It puts us in a place of peace, creating or whatever we're doing. And I think it's easy to discredit, we call them hobbies, but I think they're very important to find that place where you're like calm and not thinking of anything else except what you're doing.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. Like nothing else matters. It's just me and what I'm doing, what I want to do.
And it's hard to calm down the noise, like to however we find that place of how I was saying calm my nervous system, like whether it's meditation or whatever, because I don't know that we can find that place in ourselves until we can calm the noise, and then give ourselves permission to do what makes us feel true to ourselves. Yeah. And it can be hard. It can feel like you're in the dark and grasping at, you don't even know what you're grasping for. But the most important thing is not to quit, not to give up. Yeah.
Sometimes when we read a very powerful biography and we are so inspired, we go like, I'm gonna try to do what the author did. In your case, it's the Ironman, it's the triathlon. But I think the point that was so strong, shining so brightly in the book is that you never stop trying. You never give up. It's always about fighting for yourself, a better version of yourself, believing in yourself that there must be more. You are worth so much more, and you're going for that. And I think it's amazing.
That's what I want people to feel from my story is you just can't quit. And I believe that we're here to none of us are meant to be unhappy, depressed. The world kind of can put us into anxious and depressed places, and it's knowing that we deserve to find our own inner light. It took me till I was in my 50s. So it doesn't have to take everyone that long, but yeah, I just don't want anyone to feel like they have to just give up and accept whatever place it is where they are right now. Because there's something else.
I was working on it and it started feeling more comfortable in your 40s too.
Oh, well, so awesome. 40s are a great time.
Margie, I'm really glad that get to meet today to share our stories. And it's such a privilege to see the sparkle in your eye when you talk about your journey, how to do the triathlon. It's so inspiring because it confirms so many truths for us that we really don't need to go and be where we think we should or earn what we think we should in order to be that better version of ourselves, because you have proved that whatever we need to be the better version of ourselves has always been within. The answer has always been within. It's really about following our heart and finding the inner peace and letting our light shine through when we do so. And the other thing that came across so strongly, because most of the time I felt so alone and so abandoned when I'm in the dark space. But you show me that we are never meant to suffer, and we always have one another. The universe always have a way to bring people together, to bring the information to you. And so if you're seeing this podcast today, that's a testament of it. And you know, at any time you choose and you said, yes, I want to live a better life, you can, with so much information on YouTube these days. go and find your answers, of course, with some discernment. And whatever you have found and resonates with you, you are not forcing yourself conform. That's the version that suits you. There's really no right or wrong answer as long as you're not hurting someone. It's always been what aligns with us. And the reason why I'm anxious or anyone is shy is because that's just not the right environment for us. We just really need to find out people and find our zone.
And I think, like you said, now that we have the internet, because I also think there's probably a lot of people that don't have someone to talk to or to feel that connection, to feel like they're not alone. And it's, you know, it's a valuable thing to reach out. So sometimes, just talking can help bring clarity in the path along the way.
I agree because most of the time I felt the emotions, it was uncomfortable, but I actually don't have an explanation. I don't really know what is going on, and I need to sometimes actually see a counselor or therapy or speak to people who have gone through it before to explain to me why I'm feeling a certain way because I haven't had the experience. I wouldn't know how to categorize or make sense of my reality, and I'm prone to self blaming, so it's not healthy. And so, talking to someone or listening to other people's story kind of helped me make sense of what is going on in my world.
Definitely. I was in therapy for a lot of years, and I still didn't know what was holding me back, but just having her there, I knew she cared. Um, I knew other people cared too, but I could talk to her more honestly than I could talk to anybody else. And so, yeah, but it definitely has been a long healing journey. Yes.
Margie, having spent time with you today, I wanted to say that you are definitely not shy. I saw so many light filled moments when you share how you followed your heart and allowed that resilience and grit to power your passion. You were so filled with life. Definitely not the shy girl you described your younger self as at the beginning of our chat. I really think that the environment back then just wasn't right for you.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Margie, I believe in you. I love your beautiful courage to keep fighting for the best version of yourself. You are relentless, and I believe this is the true way to fight for the inner peace and alignment with yourself. You are so amazing, and you inspire me to keep fighting for life, for Catherine Young, and building my dream. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been a joy.